Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to day 3 of TV Collective Live in person. It's been amazing so far. Thank you if you've been with us for the last couple of days. We've enjoyed some amazing sessions. Yesterday we heard from Marcus Ryder, MBE, from the head of film and TV charity, who shared with us how we can get our hands on some of that money that they've got over there. We had a session with Maxwell D. If anybody was in that session, that was a little bit wild. He couldn't join visually, but he definitely brought the energy via the phone, and he did an amazing session on his new music library that he has available for content creators, and he's looking for content musicians and that to join. And we've had an array of amazing sessions, and AI, God, and it doesn't stop here. This is such an important session, protecting your IP, and we're really going to chop it up and talk about how we can protect our IP, but more importantly, we were just speaking to Matt backstage, how you can monetize your IP. And I think sometimes we're often constantly thinking or really obsessed with the idea or the notion that someone's going to steal my IP. And I don't know if we spend enough time thinking about how else we can monetize our IP. So I'm really interested, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Before we get started, Lily, for those who may be joining us for the first time, do you want to jump on and just give us a whiz tour around so everybody knows how to use facilities?
Oh, was answering an email. Sorry, I wasn't unprepared. Even though we've done this for every session for the last 2 days. Hello, everybody. I'm Lily. And I help do logistics of the festival. So I'm always backstage. I like to hide. I'm shy. So here we go. At the very top, I would like to introduce you to the black bar at the top. This is the main menu for the whole festival platform. Which is why you can see our name in the top left-hand corner. The big button that says schedule. Hopefully that's explanatory. So that's all of our sessions coming up. It's also all of our sessions previously. If you have missed any, you can just hit the replay button and it will play inside your browser. A couple of icons over, there is a newspaper icon. That is the feed. So it's like the chat function, but it's for the whole festival. So if you're hanging around in between sessions and you want to talk to some other people, tell us who you are. Give us your name, give us your job role, what you're interested in, and then take a seat in the lounge. And get networking. Next to that is the little people icon. This is our favorite, isn't it, Simone? So you can see everybody attending the festival. You can see everybody online at the festival right now. And then when you're looking at these people, you'll notice that there's a little speech bubble and a little calendar button. This means that you can, and Simone and I cannot stop you. So this includes you, Matt. Very sorry to spring this on you. But you can DM, if Matt has said anything and we haven't covered it in this session, you can DM Matt directly through this app, and we can't stop you. You can also request 10 minutes of his time, and this platform, AirMeet, will send him a email request. Obviously, it is then Matt's decision whether he chooses to have his entire day filled up with 10-minute bookings with you. So please do be responsible.
Bring it on.
Bring it. Did you hear what the man said? He said, bring it on. Don't stop. Start DMing now. No, I'm teasing God.
Yeah. So bon chance, Matt. Worth noting at this point that Matt is not just an intellectual property specialist. He is also actually now an industry coach with Aquilanta. So it's, if you need some actual coaching in your career, get in his DMs. I'm going to refer you to the menu down the right hand side of your screen, the grayish one. Obviously we've got chat function, which we all love. If you have questions for Matt, I would ask you very kindly to post them in the Q&A section, which is the little QA speech bubbles, just to help me moderate. And any resources that Matt mentions during the session, I will post them into the resources tab, which is the icon that looks like 2 pages on top of each other. Have a great time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lee. That's amazing. And as you guys know, TV Collective Live is part of to showcase the kind of work that we do all the time. We have an online platform called the TVC Online, and we do monthly sessions, monthly networking events. So this is our opportunity to showcase that, and it's our live version of our podcast. As Lily said, one of the key things about this event and why we've chosen this particular platform is for the opportunity to network and connect with people. So like Lily says, throughout the whole entire festival, the lounge is open and it's been set up with tables like, is it factual, non-factual, scripted, and all of that kind of stuff. You can jump on tables and meet people. You can, like you say, speak to Matt. This is about connection, access, and talking and building with each other. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Matt. Matt Angel, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely amazing. Before we jump into kind of IP, do you want to just give us a quick introduction? Just give us a little bit about, tell us a little bit about you and where your expertise lies, because you are quite a G when it comes to this conversation. You are. I mean, come on, don't be modest. Don't be modest. Come on.
Well, I started out as an intellectual property solicitor for a law firm in the city, and then I spent some years there, and then had my head turned by a job advert I saw for the role of in-house lawyer at ITV. So I managed to get that job, and that turned into a 10-year career at ITV, working on both the production and the networking side of business affairs. Also spent time working in America, which was fantastic. And then from ITV, I moved to All Three Media head office, where I oversaw the legal and business affairs function across the group. That was a slight change of direction. It was a bit more corporate and really interesting. You know, and I got some insight into how companies are run and how big groups, TV groups, are run. And from there, I joined Psycho Entertainment to work with Simon Cowell on The X Factor and Got Talent and loads of other projects as well. I mean, the thing that not many people may know about Simon is that he actually had loads of projects in development in loads of different genres: scripted, comedy, factual, documentary, all sorts of things. But he's obviously best known for Shiny Floor Entertainment. And then from there, I moved into an operational role at Objective TV, where I was the chief operating officer. So again, a great experience. And then I'd always had an itch to set up my own consultancy, and ultimately I decided to branch out and do that. So I set up Aquilanta 7 years ago, providing primarily business affairs advice to people in and around the TV world.
So you're a novice then. You don't have really that much experience in this space. I mean, God, like I said, you're a G, right? I mean, that CV is bloody insane. So you are definitely the right people. And like, I think that when it comes to issues around IP, people often don't have access to someone like you. So there'll be really nitty gritty questions, and I can see questions are coming in already. I'm going to get to them in a minute. I'm encouraging you. I'm really, really encouraging you guys to ask as many questions as possible. It's nice. I can have a nice chat with Matt, but actually you guys are going to have things that you want to ask, and you know the issues and the challenges, and this is what this session is about. So please dive in, get your questions going in, get involved in chat as we jump in. I'm going to answer a really stupid question, but I think it's an important one. What is IP, and why is it so important? Why is it so important? Why do people get so hecked up about my IP? And I know all of you guys know, but I think it's an important reminder about the importance of IP and why it's so important to us in the industry as creatives.
No, I mean, it was a very good question. Intellectual property is a slightly grand term, but it covers a class of property, and the property it's talking about are creations of the intellect. So we're talking about things like copyright, patents, trademarks, design rights. So you know, in not relevant here, but in the pharmaceutical industry, for example, you might come up with a new way of doing something, and a new process that can be patented, that can be protected. In our world, the TV world, we're talking about copyright primarily, and that would attach to pretty much anything you guys would create, whether it's a treatment for a program or a script. It could be a musical composition, all sorts of different things, and it can be incredibly valuable because it's if you're able to protect it and monetize it properly, it can earn you money by way of royalties or back end revenue for many years to come. So it can be incredibly valuable. So it's important to know when you're creating something, how to protect it and how to go about exploiting it in a way that's going to work for you.
Definitely. And there's a question that I'm going to jump to, and then I'm going to kind of ask for some kind of basics in terms of how do you protect an idea. And I think one of the challenges when you're creative in order to get the idea to be made, you have to talk about the idea, and at that point, right. So, at what point at what point does it become intellectual property? Is it when it's just a for, or is it, so we want to get into that, but I want to get to Rajesh. He's got a question, and I want to make sure that oh God, their questions are coming, and I might not get to answer any. You know what I mean? But I love it. This is what we're here for. Rajesh, I'm going to show your question, and I'm also going to invite you on stage to ask the question or to follow up yourself. So while Rajesh is getting himself together, what steps help to protect one's idea? Where you are taking the projects to develop? You've developed. I'm such a shit reader. God, let me do that again. Let's start that one again. What steps help to protect one's ideas where you are taking projects you've developed IP on to larger production companies or to viewing partners with them? I'm particularly interested in the premium documentary series, but also facts-based dramas. Thanks. And Rajesh is there. King, can you turn on your camera? We would love to see your face. Are you able to turn on your camera where you are? If not, don't worry, because I'm sure we can hear you. But if you could turn on your camera, that'd be great. Rajesh, make sure you turn off your mute. And please go forward and ask your question. Your mute is the little button next to at the bottom, where you got the icons. Can you see your mute? Rajesh, you're on stage. Yes, yay! It worked. Mute is next to the camera button. You're still on mute. You're still on mute? Yeah, which is next to, how have you turned on the camera? Right next to that button is your mute. Can you see it? You still on mute? Oh, don't worry. This just proves that we're live. That we're live. And obviously people still wrapping their head around the new technology. Stop giggling, whoever that was. If you go into, so at the bottom, just for everybody, just let me know, at the bottom is your camera. That's like a rectangle or square that's got a little triangle that looks like a camera. And then next to that is a microphone. Rajesh, you still got your mic on. Is it not muted? Lily, is that something you can help us with? He is not being able to mute. While you're trying to work out the technicals, let me show that question again, Matt, and maybe you could start answering that question.
Yeah, of course.
Start. Let's do that. And Rajesh will come back on. Oh, right. Here's a question. Refresh the question, and we are going to show that question again. Right, there we are. So there's the question.
Yeah.
And then while we get Rajesh on stage, go on.
Yeah. So this is a great question, and it's probably worthy of a session all on its own. But I'll try and answer it briefly. So, I mean, Simone touched on a really important point just now about confidentiality and people ripping your ideas off, and the challenge that you first face is basically, if you don't want anyone to know about your idea, then just keep it in a drawer and never show it to anybody. As soon as you show it to someone, there is a risk, and you just have to accept that. There are ways that you can minimize that risk. You can put the copyright sign on the treatment that you've created, with your name next to the copyright sign and the year of creation, just to you don't need to do that legally, but it just demonstrates clearly to the person who's reading it that it is a copyright work and it's created and known by you. Also put confidential at the top of the document to make it clear that it is a confidential document. You could go a stage further and ask the people you're disclosing the idea to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. I mean, tread a little bit carefully there, because some people might not react well to that, because they might feel that you're lucky that they're even willing to look at your idea. So the idea that they might then sign an NDA. Sometimes people can get a bit knocked off by that. So just sort of tread carefully. But if you put confidential on the document, it emphasizes that it is confidential. So those are some of the things you can do to protect yourself. Going back a stage further, if there's been other people involved in the creation of the idea, so maybe you have come up with the idea along with someone else, make sure that you have an agreement in place with that person regarding ownership of the IP. Is it jointly owned? Probably is in that scenario. Or is it all owned by you? Whatever, you just need to make it clear by way of an agreement, because you don't want to get into an argument about that down the line, particularly once you've had interest in the idea.
Mm.
And the other thing to say as well, just briefly, is keep a clear record of when you created the idea. So you can a simple way of doing it is you can send the treatment by email to yourself as a way of date stamping it, so that if it ever came to it, you can prove beyond doubt that you created the copyright work at a particular time.
I
So I mean,
remember when I
hopefully
was,
if
yeah.
you said, and then and then I would, if once you've got interest from a production company, then it really is worthwhile considering getting the help of an expert, because for not that much money, it could actually add a zero into how much you make from the project. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that.
What do you mean by that? Just explain that when you say it could add it zero. Just explain
Well,
what you
I
mean.
think if you've in a normal course, a TV company, if they like your idea and they want to take it on, they will look to pay you a small amount as possible, and not because they're bad people, but because they're running a business and that they want to retain as much of the profit as possible. So there are ways in that negotiation to say to the production company, hold on a minute, I'm an equal partner here, so you need to properly compensate me for what I've created. So rather than me getting £100 for this, I need to get £1,000, and hopefully the figures would be considerably higher than that.
And by having somebody kind of go through or work your kind of deal with you could make that kind of difference, right?
It can, and I've had loads of experience of that, where we've started out with the production company offering a very small amount to the creator, and actually looking for them to ride off into the sunset rather than be involved in the production. And I've actually been able to turn it into a co-production. So not only is the creator retaining some IP, they're also fully involved in the production and properly participating in the profits from the production.
I want to get to IP co-pros, because I think that for a lot of global majority producers, that oftentimes when they have a commission, that's the kind of thing that always happens. They're always told that they have to co-pro, and there's obviously kind of issues and challenges around that. Before we do that, Matt, when does an idea become intellectual property? So like we all have ideas, we're really creative people. I have all those ideas, and sometimes like me and you could be talking and vibing and let's do this, and then you do this, and then you do, and it builds and builds and builds, and that momentum. And then when does that become IP?
It's when so the general rule is that an idea in itself cannot be protected. So if I have an idea about a TV program and it's nothing more than that, just something that I discussed with Simone, then there's nothing has been created there in terms of IP. When I commit that to concrete form, whether it's written down by hand or whether it's written in a Word document or some other permanent form, at that point the IP magically is created. You don't have to register the copyright. It just exists from that point. And that's why you don't actually need to put the copyright sign on the treatment or whatever, because the copyright exists anyway. The reason that I suggest doing that is just to make it absolutely clear to the person who is reading it that it is a copyright work and you are protecting it.
Because I thought, funny when you use I thought that you needed to kind of there was some kind of process. I didn't know it was as simple as just taking the copyright and putting your name and your date. It's essentially just taking the copyright signal, putting your name and your date will kind of make people know that it kind of belongs to, like you said, people might still do what they're doing, but at least on a visual when they're reading it, like, oh shit, this is copyrighted to Simone. It's as simple as that, yeah?
It's as simple as that. And actually, you don't even need to do that. The copyright still exists by you putting it in writing. It's just that putting the copyright sign on is just a way of ramming it home to the person that this is a copyright work. So don't start thinking about ripping it off.
I remember when I was 100 years ago. I don't know if it's relevant with the invention of the internet and emails and stuff like that. When people used to send letters, yeah, I am that old. When people used to send letters before internet, I used to do copyright and send it to yourself, right?
Right,
Post date.
right.
Is that still? God, I'm 100 years. Is that still relevant, or how? What's the kind of newer
Yeah,
version of that?
completely relevant. And actually, but the newer version of that would be to send an email to yourself. But yeah, back in the day, you'd send your treatment on a bit of paper in an envelope to yourself, and then when it went through the postal system, it obviously would have been be stamped by the post office with a date on it, and that was you could use that as evidence that you created that work at that particular point.
But now you could just simply send yourself an email, and that would do
Yeah,
the same
yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
all right.
just you can send yourself a letter, but it's just as good to email yourself, because that is again is date stamped, because the email will say precisely when it was sent.
Okay, wonderful. I'm registered. I'm gonna bring you back on stage in a minute. But I see Justin. We have somebody called Justin on. I'll invite Justin if you want to come on. It'd be great for you to come on. Rather than the mysteries of companies stealing creative ideas, do you know any exact examples of this happening, and how common or how rare is it?
I think that the I haven't encountered a well, actually, that's a lie. I've encountered one case where the exact same idea for a documentary came up somewhere else. And when I talk about the exact same idea, I mean the exact same idea. So the key contributors, the key themes of the documentary, it was like, wow, this has just been copied. So I have come across that. It's quite rare, from my experience, for copying or whatever happened there. It's quite an unusual scenario. Normally, what happens is that you would pitch your idea to a company, and it would be a quiz show featuring cars and prizes, and then sometime later you might find that that same company has come up with a different show which is quite similar, which happens to include cars and prizes, but is actually quite different from your idea. Now that does happen, and I don't know whether that's people intentionally doing that, or whether ideas get stuck in people's brains and then get sort of churned out later down the line, and people don't even realize where they got the idea from. But either way, there's nothing you can really do to prevent that, because you can only protect the specifics of your idea. You can't just protect the general themes. So I think, in answer to the question, it's rare for there to be brazen copying, from my experience. But are people influenced by other people? Undoubtedly.
We had an example. We had an incident where we had a networking event. And there was quite a predominant production company there and a creative, and they spoke, and there was words and exchanges said. And I think that the person shared an idea and they didn't know that the production company was already making it, or something very similar, and it became very awkward because it felt like they had shared the idea of this production company had gone off. Is there anything you can do? Because that's similar to what you're saying, that people who influence ideas feel very similar. How do you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And when I worked for big TV companies like ITV, we would actually get people who were submitting an idea to sign what we called a submission release. And the idea of that release, in large part, was to cover that scenario, Simone, that you've just described. So if ITV in that instance happened to be developing a similar idea, or even exactly the same idea, by pure coincidence, that submission form was getting the creator of the idea to say, okay, I accept that. It's a coincidence. I won't sue you. In the in the absence of that, it's all a bit murky. And I would in that situation, I would expect the company that you're pitching to say, hold on, we're actually developing something in this space already, something similar. So it's best that we stop these conversations and we each go our separate ways.
That didn't happen. I'm going to call. We've got loads of questions coming in. Rajesh, I'm going to call you back on stage, and hopefully your technicals have been sorted. Yeah. More specifically, could Matt please talk about? Oh, Rajesh says you magically appeared and you're definitely, your mic's working. I'm not sure about your.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. And we can see you.
Hi, Matt. Thanks very much for this. This is incredibly useful, and for me personally, very well timed. I literally just had a meeting yesterday where I pitched an idea, and I've received a message this morning saying we love it. And so I'd kind of quite like to get into the nitty-gritty in terms of sort of, I mean, the sort of nature of deal structures, in terms of sort of whether one can, the balance between asking for a kind of production fee or a development fee, the balance of asking for IP on the back end, and then also the sort of costs of that. Say, for example, if I was to, after this session, call you up and sort of say, can we please work together on cutting this deal? How much would that likely cost me?
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations on getting a bite, because as we all know, it's hard enough getting people just to read ideas, let alone say they like them and they want to progress them. It's difficult to provide a concise answer to your question, because every deal is different. But the starting position will always be that the production company wants to pay you a sum of money, keep all of the production fee, and not have you involved. And that's nothing personal. It's not, you might be the greatest producer ever, but production companies, they don't want to work with other people. They just want to do it all themselves. So right from the start, the fight is about making sure that you are still involved if you want to be.
So in this circumstance, I've made sure that's happened. So I've set ground rules for the initial meeting. I've said I would definitely want some sort of payment up front. I'd want to split the IP on the back end, and I'd want my shingle on the back end, but I wouldn't want to be the fully integrated producer. I'd be happy for them to do that. So it's sort of using my shop as a sort of IP, idea shop.
So you've set the scene there very, very, very astutely as a co-production. So the fact that they are willing to progress the idea, even though you've made that clear, sort of suggests to me you stand a good chance of striking a good deal and be making this a co-production. Now, if you have your own production company or your own company, you can ask that company is attached as the co-producer. It doesn't mean you've got to do any significant production management. You can get the other company to do that, but it does mean that your company gets credited as a co-producer, and it also means that you have justification for share of the production, which the other production company won't like at all, because that's their lifeblood. But too bad. You're the creator. You're saying you want to share of the production fee. You should be able to get something. Maybe not 50%, but who knows? So it sounds like you're in a position, to get someone like me involved. If it were, if it was something, it's difficult to say how long these negotiations take. If it's 2-3 hours, that could be, £500 and thereabouts. And I would very, very much hope that you would, through getting the advice from me or someone like me, you would earn far more than £500 more than you would have done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think that sounds like a very good price. So can we chat after?
Yeah, you can DM him. You know how to get him. You know how to get hold of him through the DMs, through the system. And actually, Matt recently joined our online community. Thank you, Matt. So he's available You know, he's accessible. He's becoming an integral part of our community, and we love that. And I just
Great.
want to say, just to give Matt his flowers, Matt reached out to us. I didn't reach out to Matt. Matt reached out to us. He loved what we was doing and really wanted to know how you could support and support and be part of the community. So we thank you. We welcome you wholeheartedly into our community and love you. Love to have you here because we can pick your brains on stuff
Oh,
like
no,
this.
no,
Regis,
thank
yeah,
you
is
so
that
much.
was that
Yeah,
helpful?
that situation that Rajesh is talking about is, I mean, that's kind of my sweet spot, and I love nothing more than helping a creator like Rajesh actually earn what they deserve to earn from what they've created, because we all know that for every idea that gets a bite, you know, there are hundreds, thousands of ideas that fall by the wayside. So you've got to get paid when you get that bite.
And in terms of sort of thinking more medium and long term, in terms of sort of, because I've got a slate of ideas of similar sort of things, which I'm sort of thinking quite strategically about which partners to sort of approach based on the project and the partner. Where's the balance between working with an IP specialist such as yourself, having legal business affairs legal advisors, and then possibly an agent as well? Like, it sort of where does the sort of Venn diagram sit?
Yeah, well, I'm business affairs. I happen to be a qualified solicitor, and I have been for many years. So I mean, I'm very similar to a law firm, but I don't cost much because I don't carry the overhead that a law firm does. So there's no real difference between what you get from me and a law firm. In terms of an agent, I mean, I would put myself forward because I've been around the block a fair bit. I know a lot of people, I know a lot of companies, so I'm always happy to make introductions and also negotiate a deal. So you are looking for somebody to act as an agent and to negotiate, then I can do all of that for you.
Wonderful. There's so many questions. Yeah, thank you, Regis. That was amazing. There's loads of questions that I want to get through, and I know that we don't want to run out of time. Nancy, I'm going to bring you, I'm showing your question next. I'm going to invite you on stage. If you want, you cannot be invited on stage because you're using your mobile phone, no problem. But do I know you've been ripped off? What's a good deal versus a bad deal with a production company?
Okay, how do I know I'm being ripped off? I if that so if you're talking about like how do I sort of find out, it's just a question of seeing your what looks like your idea out there somehow. There's no way of sort of finding out that someone's actually ripped you off without somehow finding that evidence. But maybe you mean by that question, like, how do I know whether the deal I've been given is a fair deal or not? Okay. I mean, and I mean, the way you do it is by talking to people. So, either someone like me or your peers in the industry. If you don't have people in the industry you can compare notes with, then you need to speak to somebody like me. And frankly, it's not going to cost much, if anything, actually, for me just to give you a sense check of whether your deal is good or not. I'm happy to look at the deals of anyone within this community to tell them whether they've the deal is good or not. I'm not going to charge for that. And if I think there's scope for improvement, I'll tell you. If I think there isn't, I'll tell you as well.
Matt, your last famous words, I saw hearts go up. I saw your emails go. I can imagine your DMs going. Bing, 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 bing. Last famous words, but no, a really generous offer, and it's really nice to be able to. I think that's one of the challenges. We oftentimes, I'm not suggesting anybody in this group, that we're so creative and we're so passionate and we just want to tell our stories that we don't often, we get so excited about that part that we're not often thinking about the business and lose And oftentimes I hear of lots of production companies having, like, they get a co-pro, but it seems like they're forever starting again and never building on that good work. So to have somebody like you in the room is insanely amazing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And just to say, Simone, that I've worked in the TV world for many years. So, I'm not about putting barriers up or delaying things. I know how quickly production moves and needs to move. I know how delicate the conversations are. So I'm not there to create any blocks, but I can within a few minutes I can tell you to use certain words that may vastly increase how much money you make from your idea.
Well, and that's kind of what we hear. We've got a question from Kadar. I've invited him on stage, or her, or him, or them on stage, and hopefully they'll join us in a minute. Hi, Matt. I'm in the early stages of an idea, access to an individual. Do you mind breaking down the main steps to be taken to protect the idea? And Kadar's here, so you can answer that. Don't forget, and he's ready with the move. He's ready with it. So maybe you answer that question, Kadar, please.
Sorry, Simone, it's Kadir. Sorry,
Kadir, I apologize, Kadir. I am extremely dyslexic. I always get scared if names are not phonetically, so I do apologize. Kadir, please answer. Matt. Go ahead.
You said it perfectly. So yeah, just I don't know what are the best steps. What's the best practice to take for anyone like at the early stages? Is there anything that needs to be down on like an email, even in terms of like having an exclusivity agreement? Just want to know what you suggest.
It's a great question, Kadir, and you've actually just answered it. Get an exclusivity agreement. I was recently chatting with somebody who had access to a particular individual, was developing a whole project around it, had done loads of work on it, spent a fair bit of money, and I'd said to this person, look, I really recommend that you get a short exclusivity agreement in place to tie you in with this person. That person decided not to do that, maybe for budget reasons, I don't know. And then 4 months down the line, he dropped me a line saying that someone's done the dirty on him and he's working directly. Someone that he'd introduced is now working directly with this person and he's being cut out. What can he do? And I had to say, look, I'd love to help, but it's a really difficult, messy situation, and I don't think there's anything you can do. So get an agreement in place, and it doesn't have to be a long agreement. I can draft something, 1 page, but it locks you in and just make sure that you remain part of that project and no one can circumvent you and cut you out.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I was just going to ask, where would the best place? Is there any resources out there where I could get a draft or something?
I mean, speak to me, and if to the extent that budget is an issue, we can talk about that. But what we've got to do here is get something in place quickly. I don't know whether you could find something on the internet. I doubt it. Trouble with doing that is that you end up cobbling together a document that doesn't really apply to the situation. You really need to have
ChatGPT. ChatGPT can't help in this case, though.
So I think I'm very happy to chat with you offline, and we can work something out. But I would really, really recommend that you get something in place.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, I'll DM you afterwards then, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
please do.
Fantastic.
Thanks a lot for your help. Thank you.
No
Thank you. Seb, question from you. And I'll invite you to come up and speak as well. I'm not sure if it extends to all formats and it's similar to posting to yourself, but back to Office. Oh, it's your script service to all members. Oh, you were just making a comment rather than, okay. I don't know if you need to.
And actually you can also, there's also somewhere in America where you can register scripts, and also there's in terms of in the non-scripted world, in terms of formats, I suppose it would apply to scripted as well. There's an organisation called Frapper, which has a registration service. All these things are great, but I have to tell you that none of them make a blind bit of difference to the legal position, and none of these organisations would claim to be making any difference to it. They're just offering you an additional way to demonstrate that what you created and when. So it's similar to sending an email to yourself. It's got the backing of these industry bodies, but so yes, good to know and make use of it, but it doesn't actually change the legal position.
Okay, Vinny, we've got another question from Vinny. Can I invite you on stage? If you don't want to, please don't feel no way. Hi, Matt. What rights does broadcasters have on your IP? Can't stop, come on stage because she's in a coffee shop. Sorry, she can't talk right now because she's in a coffee shop. But what rights do broadcasters have when it comes to IP?
Well, I mean, this again is something that probably deserves a presentation on its own. It's something I did actually do something for Screen Skills about this very question. There's no simple answer because each broadcaster takes a different package of rights. So if you get commissioned by Netflix, they'll basically scoop up everything and leave you with nothing, but give you a big check. If you get commissioned by Channel 4, they will take a narrow license of rights to allow them to put it out on Channel 4 services, leaving you with everything else. So you end up owning a lot of the IP and getting a lot of the revenue. And then there are all sorts of different models in between. So, whether you're going to Sky, UK TV, Comedy Central, Channel 5, they're all, the deals are all slightly different. So there's no simple answer to that, I'm afraid. The fact of the matter is that unless you're extremely lucky, you're unlikely to be in a situation where you've got a feeding frenzy of 2 or more broadcasters chasing you. Usually what happens, as we all know, is if you're lucky, you've got one broadcaster interested. And so basically you just, whatever terms they offer, you accept, and you have a stab at amending them. But really, it's amazing to get a nibble from a broadcaster, and the key thing is to get the deal done.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm pleased. Oh, we've got another one coming. And I saw, Warris, you had a question and you seem to have disappeared. Did you withdraw your question, Warris? Sharon, let me pull Sharon up. And I want to go on to talking also a little bit about how we can be monetizing our IP. So this is Sharon. I'll bring Sharon up. Sharon's an expert of this. She'll know exactly how to jump on stage. She better do. Warris, there you are. Oh, it was answered. Wonderful. I can't come on stage, and Sharon can't come on stage today because she's an expert, but she can't come on stage. So we'll answer the question for you. I'm about to approach someone who has recently released a book. No problem, Sharon. He's recently released a book, and I'd like to get exclusive agreement in place with the writer. Could you accommodate that? Can I get a 2-year option or any other options? Can you just give some advice around what can be done if you wanted to type an option or tie up rights with a writer?
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting question. So there are 2 things there. If you're talking about optioning a book, the book itself, that's one thing. So if somebody has I don't know, written an autobiography, and you want to option that and have them involved, then that's one type of agreement, and it's a book option, and those deals happen a lot, and I deal with them a lot. It may be that you're thinking about wanting to go further than just the book and have access to that person's other areas of their life. Maybe the book was about a particular incident and you want to get access to other incidents, or maybe you want to get access to I don't know, to them in their home and just seeing how they live day to day. That's a situation where it's not a book option you're after, because what you're wanting to do is not based on the book. That is similar to the situation we had with Kadir, where you want an exclusivity agreement with that individual. So depending on what you're after, you'll either need a book option or an exclusivity agreement, or both. And I can obviously help with all of that.
And Sharon is she added to that.
It's all back so far. So
I want to give a drama.
Well, it's how about so far? I'm trying to get the author to create in France.
So the literary agents is like something.
If I'm understanding correctly, this it's a little tricky, because when the if the author has already done a deal via his or her agent with a publisher, then the book rights then sit with the publisher. And so when you're negotiating a book option, you're negotiating with the publisher, and the author has very little, if anything, to do with that negotiation, because they've given the rights away. If you're talking about a situation where there isn't yet a book deal, and you're trying to sort of get in and get TV rights before the book deal's been done, then that is perfectly possible, and I can help with that. But it may be that the literary agent would say, well, I don't want to do that deal now, because I want to do the publishing deal first. And it may be that the publisher will want to hold on to TV and film rights. So it's, in theory, it's possible, but it depends on, but it's been published. Okay, so then there is a publisher. Yeah, so you've got to. So if you want to do anything around the book, you've got to do a deal with the publisher. You need to option the book with the publisher. If you want to do a program about the author that isn't connected to the book itself, if you were doing a day in the life of that author, then you ought to be able to, those rights ought to be available, and you would do an exclusivity deal with that author. That ought to be relatively straightforward in terms of, it might be difficult to negotiate the numbers. Could I do a biopic without the book? Yes, you could. So this is where it gets a bit funny with book options. It might sound like what I'm saying is contradictory, but actually you do not need anybody's permission to do a biopic about somebody. So I'm sure you're all desperate to do a biopic feature film about me. You're entirely free to do that. You do not need my permission. People talk about life rights, and life rights are a thing, but actually, if you want to do a biopic about any individual, whoever it is, you are completely free to do that. The reason why you might enter into a contract, a life rights contract with the subject of the biopic, is because you want exclusive access to them. You want your biopic to be the authorized version. You want access to their archive and all the rest of it. And also you'd also slip in an assurance from the person that they're not going to sue you for defamation or anything. So that's what happens when you have a life rights agreement. But the simple answer to your question is you are free to do a biopic.
Wonderful. That's amazing. That's really useful. Please, though, we've got a few more questions, and obviously we're kind of right into the last 10 minutes, and those questions have been amazing. Matt, what are the best ways that people can be monetizing the IPs, or what ways can people be thinking about monetizing their IP? And what is interesting is sometimes you might not even know that or appreciate you've got IP that's so valuable. So getting people to think about their IP and how ways they can be monitoring. Can you give any advice on that?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we were saying at the outset. If when you have come up with any kind of creative idea, and you've put it on paper, and it's involved some effort on your part, then you should be looking to get paid for that. So you should go through the steps of trying to protect it as best you can. And depending on who you're working for and what the arrangement is, it may be that you're just getting a flat fee and handing over all your rights, which is fine. But you want to go into that negotiation armed with the knowledge of what you've created, so that you can make sure you're getting a proper payment from that. Equally, if you actually want to remain involved and retain ownership of the IP or some of it and get a share of profits, then you need to negotiate a deal accordingly.
Wonderful, wonderful. Before we have we got any more questions? I know someone was asking whether they're going to get in contact with you about doing some online chats. Is there any areas, guys, in terms of IP or any issues that are particularly coming up? Are we in the right direction? Are we covering everything that you need? Let me know, let me know, let me know. So monetizing, and essentially the kind of ways that you would monetize your IP, particularly in the TV world. Can you give us some examples of the ways you got an idea, you've got a great idea, you've committed to paper, it's now moved from being an idea to IP. Obviously you can get commissioned. And so what are the other lesser known ways that you could be monetizing your IP?
Well, I mean, there really can be all sorts of different ways, because when you look at a TV agreement, you'll see loads and loads of different categories of rights, different ways that you can exploit ideas. So, and it depends from what kind of project it is. But with regard to, say, a documentary, you've obviously got the exploitation of the documentary itself. So if it's being commissioned by ITV, the producer will retain the rights to sell that same documentary around the world. So there's money to be made from selling it to America or India or Australia or wherever. There might be, you might want to write, assuming that there isn't already a book, you might want a book written about the documentary. So then there are rights relating to that book. There's money to be made from that. It may be, I mean, it's not so relevant with regard to documentary, but with, say, an entertainment program, there might be merchandising potential. So, maybe, you might want to make a T-shirt branded with the program imagery. There's money to be made from that. A sort of lesser known one is to do with music publishing. So if there's music within a program, and it might just be background music or stings for when certain things happen in the game show or whatever, that music is capable of earning revenue. So whenever that program is broadcast anywhere in the world, including that music, that is creating royalties, and those royalties go to the composer of the music and the publisher. And if you're the creator of the program concept and you've got IP in the program, you would have a good argument for getting some of those royalties, which can be worth a lot of money.
We got Jackie, you've got a question, a really good question. I think that one, and I relate to that because I used to be a development producer. Can I invite you on stage to speak? You can just make a decision whether you will or you won't. But while you're deciding whether you will, how can a development producer protect their idea? Is there a standard agreement in your view that people generally ask to use? She's rejected to come on stage. No problem, Jackie. Is there, can you give some advice in terms, generally use that they might example to include to back end fee or share of their IP? How do development
agreement?
Oh, did that? Oh, that seems to have changed. Hold on, let me make sure I'm doing the right question. Let me do that again. Sorry. That's that question. Here's the question. Yeah. So how can a development producer protect their ideas? Yeah.
So, well, first of all, I'm assuming if that we're not talking about a development producer who's staffed at a production company, because in that situation, you're an employee and all IP and what you create goes to your employer. So you get your salary, and if you get a bonus, then great. If we're not talking about that, we're talking about an individual who's working for themselves, developing ideas. Is there a standard agreement? Well, there certainly is a standard agreement that the production companies will give you, but that's not of great interest to us, because that agreement will give you as little as possible. I can certainly furnish people with an agreement which includes shares of IP and production fee and back end, it won't go down particularly well with the people that you send it to. But you've just got to be ready for that negotiation. And if you want to get properly paid, then you've got to go through the awkwardness of having that negotiation. So I can certainly get you a template that you can send to people if that's what you'd like to do, with the caveat that it might get people's backs up, and it might lead to the idea not being pursued. But if it's a good enough idea, then hopefully it will be, and you'll earn more money through it.
I think we're very British about that, aren't we? And we're not very American in that way, very gung-ho when it comes to kind of negotiations and money. We're quite shy and quite reserved in the UK with that. Is that a kind of working in the States? Have you noticed that? Is there a difference in how we approach it?
I mean, massively.
Yeah.
It's just it's what we as Brits continually struggling with. We're kind of embarrassed to have these conversations, and they can be awkward. But what you've got to remember is the people that you're having the discussions with probably do this on a daily basis. I don't find these conversations the slightest bit awkward because I've been having them for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
So it might be awkward for you, but just try and brazen on through it, because it will all be forgotten. No one's going to think you're difficult. They're just going to think that you're smart, and you're trying to get properly paid for what you've created.
And I think that people do worry that you do kind of get a reputation of being, particularly if you're, let's keep it real, we're global majority people of color. So you kind of go in with the understand that it might be kind of difficult from the start to add in this IP and to arts that can make them less attractive. But I take your point, it's so important to ensure that you get paid and get paid for the work that you do. Will, I saw you had a question. I am going to find you and I'm going to put that question on stage. Where are you gone, Will? This thing's moved a little bit there. Thank you. Thank you, Lily. Go. There's Matt. Is that
What was a simple contractual change you pushed for that yielded the most for you on the back end? God, that's a good question. I think it would be turning an arrangement into a co-production. So and if for those of you that are thinking, oh, hold on, I don't have a company, and I certainly don't have a production company. Well, it doesn't mean you can't quickly set one up. There's nothing wrong with that. It takes, and I can help with all this. It could take you 5 minutes to set up a company on Companies House. You're perfectly entitled to do that. And that can be your production company, and that can be where you house your IP, and both for this project and ones going forward. And so in a situation where you are pitching your idea, you were always gunning for a co-production. So if you look at the big the big names, whether it's Simon Cowell or Idris Elba or whoever, when you deal with those guys as a production company, from the outset it's going to be a co-production, because if you want to deal with the big names like that and benefit from their creations and their IP, they need to be properly paid. So you go into it knowing it's a co-pro, and just because you're not yet at that same level doesn't mean that you can't start off on the same basis.
110%. And I love that. And I think just even giving people knowing what they can and can't ask for, making sure people are well informed, they've got the right kind of language, just gives you the confidence to kind of ask. And like you said, even if it's a negotiation piece, you can start negotiating from that point. Matt, you've been insanely amazing. The kind of information, I think, definitely for me, and I'm not sure if I can talk for everybody else, getting access to that type of information can be really challenging. So to have you in the room and have people be able to ask you questions has been insane. And you're unfortunately, you're now part of our community, so you're not going anywhere. We will be inviting you back time and time again.
Please do.
Questions will always come up.
I'm delighted to be a part of it. Thank you very much again for inviting me. I've enjoyed it a lot.
No, brilliant session. Lots of good talks and lots of good confirmation. Lots of good comments and feedbacks. Lily, jump on stage and tell us what's going on next. My brain is wonderful. I'm not quite sure what we got next, but I know we've got something exciting coming up next.
We do. So our next session, if I can find my little schedule.
That's what I would. That's what I called you.
Sorry, again, unprepared. Unprepared, very unprofessional. So our next session is audience data and how to use it. So we've got not Matt Wood, because you're Matt Angel, Paul Wood from Fremantle at 1 p.m. and he will be discussing data analysis of audiences, who's watching what, why they're watching it, what programs are being watched the most. That is one that you really want to get into. If you've got a similar genre, similar script, similar IP, you'll want to know where it needs to go so that you can get the most eyes on it, get the most money. At 3 p.m. we've got exec producer and multi-platform content creator Danny Joshi. You'll know him probably for his most famous role as exec producer on Dreaming Whilst Black. Danny Joshi has his own production company. He is a master in TV of finding content online. It's your little web series that you don't think is going anywhere and pushing it onto the big screen. He's also got his own line of children's books. Like, this man can pivot and do anything. He knows how to make an idea into money. So catch up with that one. And then tonight at 6:30 we have a UK TV Commissioner, Emil Nawagamua, and he is going to talk through the perfect pitch, how to get in front of a commissioner, what they're looking for, and thanks to Matt now, how to be business minded, and you've got your IP background sorted as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lily. Just a reminder, the next session around the audience and insights, it's really giving you an insight on what audiences around the world are watching, what they want in, what they're looking for, so that you can kind of pitch and tailor your ideas for in that way. So I'm hoping that session will be really helpful. Remember that TVC Live is just a small example of the work that we do online on our platform all the time. Danny's a boss, I agree. Matt will be you can communicate with Nat via the festival for the next until the 27th, and also he's available on our online platform. Don't also forget to go to resources. Please check out the TV Collective Content Fund that we're announcing. One of you guys will be lucky enough to win $5,000 on Friday the 27th as we launch our new lottery fund. So we really, really encourage you guys to get involved. Thank you so much. See you guys in an hour, whenever our next session is. You've been amazing. Spread the word. This stuff is amazing. You don't get access to this all the time. So make sure you tell your friends, your networks, your mum, your granny, whoever needs to know, and get them to come down. Thanks so much. And I'll see you guys later. Bye, 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 bye.